Good morning and welcome to Second Unitarian Church. If Karen Goldner returns, I will pass this back to her to share our welcome. But I am Reverend Jason Lydon, minister here at Second Unitarian, and my pronouns are he and him or anything else used with respect. In response to COVID-19, we at 2U are doing our part in the slowing of the spread of the coronavirus. We are continuing to meet virtually using Zoom. You will notice that there is a chat feed available for you to interact with. You're welcome to use this to say hello to one another and share your joys or concerns when we reach that part of the service. When we would traditionally sing together and read things in unison, you are encouraged to do so as well, even though you are on mute. Our voices echo through the world, so we just might hear one another if we listen closely and sing with our full spirits. As things continue to change, we will pay close attention to the recommendations of public health officials and respond as quickly as possible. At this time, we recognize physical distancing as an act of love and protection. We especially welcome our newcomers this morning. During this time of pandemic, finding a new community and making new connections can be challenging. Please know that we are excited to have you and look forward to getting to know you. If you're new to us today, you are welcome to note that in our chat. Our worship this morning is led by myself, along with worship associate Janice Stashwick and chalice lighter Dan. Our music is provided by Carl Kennedy, Reverend Derek Jackson, Miranda Dean, and our music director, Amanda Thomas, as well as a special collection of music for our anthem this morning. Alicia Obando, our director of faith development, is leading the Time for All Ages. Our tech team include Megan Dunning, Dan Ashley, Harris McKee, John Hauk, David Martin, and Audrey Martin. And I have a couple of announcements for you this morning. Please note that I will be on vacation this coming week, and I will be out of the city. If you have a pastoral emergency, you can reach me on my cell phone, though I will return back here next week on the 22nd. Our Canvas season continues, and we are very excited about the pledges coming in. Each year, we create a get-by budget and a dream budget. With increases in pledges, we have increased capacity to give life to our shared ministry and to truly and fully fund our dream budget. If you've not made your pledge yet for the 2021 to 2022 church year, you can do so today. There is a link that will show up in your chat feed. Virtual choir has begun to meet again with Amanda on Thursdays over Zoom at 7 p.m. If you're new to the church or have not yet joined choir but feel ready to do some singing, you would be very much welcome. Moving forward, choir rehearsals will include more hymn singing together as well as preparing for some upcoming special services. Please contact our music director, Amanda Thomas, if you would like more information. You can find additional information and more announcements in your order of service. Now I invite Janice Stashwick to share our call to worship.
Good morning. My pronouns are she, her. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a community of children, youth, and adults, a people of many beliefs and traditions, bound not by the specific things we believe, but by the values that we share. Whether you are joining us for the first time or the 1,000th time, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God some of the time all of the time or none of the time, you are welcome here. Whatever your race, whomever you love, whichever way you move in the world, however much money is in your pocket, you are welcome here. I invite you now to take a breath in and out. And as the music begins, let us enter into our worship service together.
Thank you, Miranda. My Irish heart feels so much hearing those words. In just a moment, Dan will light our chalice, the symbol of our faith. We light our chalice this morning with these words from Aaron Freeman. You want a physicist to speak at your funeral. You want the physicist to talk to your grieving family about the conservation of energy so that they will understand that your energy has not died. You want the physicist to remind your sobbing mother about the first law of thermodynamics, that no energy gets created in the universe and none is destroyed. You want your mother to know that all your energy, every vibration, every BTU of heat, every wave of every particle that was her beloved child remains with her in this world. You want the physicist to tell your weeping father that amid energies of the cosmos, you gave as good as you got. You can hope your family will examine the evidence and satisfy themselves that the science is sound and that they'll be comforted to know that your energy is still around. According to the law of the conservation of energy, not a bit of you is gone. You're just a little less orderly. Dan, would you light our chalice, please?
Good morning. Please join me in singing our opening hymn, number 207, Earth Was Given as a Garden. Earth was given as a garden, cradle for humanity, tree of life and tree of knowledge, placed for our discovery. Here was home for all your creatures, born of land and sky and sea, all created in your image, all to live in harmony. Show to us again the garden where life flows fresh and free. Gently guide your sons and daughters into full maturity. Teach us how to trust each other, how to use for good our power, how to touch the earth with reverence, then once more we'll lead in flower. Bless the earth and all your children. One creation makes us whole, interwoven, all connected, planet wide and inmost soul. Holy Mother, life bestowing, bid our waste and warfare cease. Fill us all with grace overflowing. Teach us how to live in peace.
We covenant to build a community that challenges us to grow and empowers us to honor the truth within ourselves. We will be generous with our gifts and honest in our communication, holding faithful to a love that embraces both diversity and conflict. Called by our living tradition, we will nurture spirituality within a vision of the eternal, living out our inner convictions through struggles for justice and acts of compassion. And now please join us in singing our congregational hymn, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning, everyone. It is now time for the story for all ages. So if your children are not yet in the room with you, it's a good time to ask them to join you. Today's story is called Badger's Parting Gifts, and it is by Susan Varley. Badger was dependable, reliable, and always ready to help when help was needed. He was also very old, and he knew almost everything. Badger was so old that he knew he must soon die. Badger wasn't afraid of death. Dying meant only that he would leave his body behind. And as his body didn't work as well as it had in days gone by, Badger wasn't too concerned about that. His only worry was how his friends would feel when he was gone. Hoping to prepare them, Badger had told them that someday soon he would be going down the long tunnel, and he hoped he wouldn't be too sad, that they wouldn't be too sad when it happened. One day, as Badger was watching Mole and Frog race down the hillside, he felt especially old and tired. He wished more than anything that he could run with them, but he knew his old legs wouldn't let him. He watched Mole and Frog for a long time, enjoying the sight of his friends having a good time. It was late when he arrived home. He wished the moon good night and closed the curtains on the cold world outside. He made his way slowly down to the warm fire that was waiting for him deep underground. He had his supper and then sat down at the desk to write a letter. When he had finished, he settled down in his rocking chair near the fire. He gently rocked himself to and fro and soon was fast asleep, having a strange yet wonderful dream like none he'd ever had before. Much to Badger's surprise, he was running. Ahead of him was a very long tunnel. His legs felt strong and sure as he ran towards it. He no longer needed his walking stick, so he left it lying on the floor of the tunnel. Badger moved swiftly, running faster and faster through the long passageway until his paws no longer touched the earth. He felt himself turning end over end, tumbling and falling, but nothing hurt. He felt free. It was as if he had fallen out of his body. The following day, Badger's friends gathered anxiously outside Badger's door. They were worried because he hadn't come out to say good morning as he always did. Fox broke the sad news that Badger was dead and read Badger's note to them. It said simply, "Gone down the long tunnel. Bye-bye, Badger." All the animals had loved Badger and everyone was very sad. Mole especially felt lost, alone, and desperately unhappy. In bed that night, Mole could think only of Badger. Tears rolled down his velvety nose, soaking the blankets he clung to for comfort. Outside it began to snow. Winter had begun, and soon a thick layer of snow hid the animals' homes, where they would stay snug and warm during the cold months. The snow covered the countryside, but it didn't conceal the sadness that Badger's friends felt. Badger had always been there when anyone needed him. The animals all wondered what they would do now that he was gone. Badger had told them not to be unhappy, but it was hard not to be. As spring drew near, the animals often visited each other and talked about the days when Badger was alive. Mole was good at using scissors, and he told about the time Badger had taught him how to cut out a chain of moles from a piece of folded paper. Paper moles had littered the ground that day. Mole remembered the joy he'd felt when he'd finally succeeded in making a complete chain of moles with all the paws joined. Frog was an excellent skater. He recalled how Badger had helped him take his first slippery steps on the ice. Badger had gently guided him across the ice until he had gained enough confidence to glide out on his own. Fox remembered how, when he was a young cub, he could never knot his tie properly until Badger showed him how. Starting with the wide end of the tie, it's right over left, once around to the back, up, then down through the crossover, and holding the back of the tie, push the knot up to the neck. Fox could now tie every knot ever invented, and some he'd made up himself. And of course, his own necktie was always perfectly knotted. Badger had given Mrs. Rabbit his special recipe for gingerbread and had shown her how to bake gingerbread rabbits. Mrs. Rabbit was well known throughout the countryside for her excellent cooking. As she talked about her first cooking lesson with Badger so long ago, she could almost smell the wonderful fragrance of gingerbread fresh from the oven. Each of the animals had a special memory of Badger, something he had taught them that they could now do extremely well. He had given them each something to treasure, a parting gift that would become all the more special each time it was passed on to others. As the last of the snow melted, so did the animals' sadness. Whenever Badger's name was mentioned, someone remembered another story that made them all smile. One warm spring day, as Mole was walking on the hillside where he'd last seen Badger, he wanted to thank his friend for his parting gift. "Thank you, Badger," he said softly, believing that Badger would hear him. And somehow, Badger did. So even when our friends and family might pass on, we will always have their memories in our hearts and in our minds to keep us warm. Thank you for joining me for the story today.
Thank you for sharing that story with us, Alicia. Each year, we all make a commitment, a pledge, to support the ministry of our church. In addition to this contribution, each Sunday we take a collection so that we can share with those who are doing justice work well beyond our walls. While we're unable to come together in person, we can still share our resources. And in just a moment, there will be a number on your screen, and you can follow the prompts to make your contribution this morning. For the month of March, we are sharing our plate with the International Convocation of Unitarian Universalist Women. This morning, we will hear some words from Karen Korch.
Hi, I'm Karen Korch. I'm a member in Deerfield, and I am the board president of the International Convocation of Unitarian Universalist Women. We have been around since 2009. I know Eileen gave you a brief introduction last week, and somebody has put our website in the chat, I see, so you can get some information about us by going to our website. Since the pandemic started, we have been having informal gatherings every other Tuesday, the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. And that's where I met Eileen, and that's where she got the idea to share the plate for March, as International Women's Day is in March, and we traditionally ask churches to share the plate in March for our organization. I first got involved with International Women's Convocation in 2012 when I went to Transylvania. I heard that you have a sister church in Transylvania, so you are probably familiar with the Transylvanian Unitarian Church. But that was my first introduction in 2012, because I have not been involved in the partner church organization. So that was my first experience getting to know the women of Transylvania in their Unitarian church. We also have a working relationship with Unitarians in Northeast India in the Khasi Hills. And we work with the UU Church of the Philippines. So there are women's groups all joined together from the Philippines, India, Transylvania. We work with a group of women in Bolivia who are not Unitarians or UUs, but they share our values. And we have women's leadership program in that country also. We also have a program in the US where we partner with another group to assist women who are migrants in detention, as women in detention do not have access to the services that they need. They need a little bit of money to be able to make phone calls to get a hold of lawyers to represent them. So our project involves putting money into women's accounts in migrant detention to help them get in touch with lawyers who can represent them. So that's our newest project that I'm feeling really good about. I hope that some of you can join us in our Tuesday gatherings to get to know us better. We also have projects in Africa. So we are all over the world, and it's a great way to get to know women who share similar values all over the world. Thank you.
Now I invite you to join me in reading our offertory words. Those words are printed in your order of service and on screen. This church is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm it and enable its participation in the larger world around us. The offering will now be generously given and gratefully received.
Before our pastoral prayer and meditation, I neglected to particularly welcome those visiting us this morning from the Bismarck-Menden Unitarian Universalist congregation in North Dakota. We are especially glad to welcome you to share worship with us this morning. And I hope that all of our 2Uers extend some welcome to you. And I invite you now, wherever it is that you are, to join me in the spirit of prayer or meditation. And let us begin by breathing together. Try releasing the muscles in your shoulders, relaxing the muscles in your neck, letting go of the tension you might hold in your jaw. Be present in your body, your beautiful, sacred body. We begin in thanks, thankful for the breath in our lungs, the beauty of this earth, and the strength of our community. We hold in our hearts those who care for family in ill health, those who live with grief or chronic pain, those struggling with addiction or illness, seen and unseen. We are with you. For parents and teachers and all those whose primary spiritual practice is the care of children, we are with you. We pray for our neighbors in prison, for those who are struggling to stay afloat in the midst of poverty. We are with you. We pray for all those living in harm's way. We pray for our planet and commit to work that will lead us away from the harms of climate chaos. We pray that wisdom, compassion, and empathy guide the leaders of our world. May they and we be instruments of a just and lasting peace. Our lives are truly blessed by those who knowingly, with curiosity and courage, face their final days. For immigrants who are still locked in cages at the border, including children still separated from their families, we are with you and commit to doing more. Loving Divine, we seek comfort and care as we approach many one-year anniversaries over these next weeks. A year since being together in church. A year since receiving a hug from a friend. A year since laughing with coworkers between tasks. A year of loss. May we be gentle with ourselves and one another as we journey through this time of anniversary. Into our shared silence across space, I invite you now, wherever it is that you are, to speak aloud the name anyone you wish to lift up into the loving support of our community. With our deepest compassion, let us hold in our hearts those named and unnamed, those remembered and those forgotten. Let it be so. Amen, and blessed be. At this time, I will light 2 candles. One representing the joys and celebrations we are going through right now, and one for those sorrows and struggles we're also experiencing. As the music continues, I invite you to share your joys, celebrations, sorrows, and struggles in our chat window. of these, our shared joys and concerns close to our hearts. Janice, would you share our first reading, please?
Our first reading this morning is a poem entitled En Paz by Amado Nervo. Very near my setting sun, I bless you, life, because you never gave me neither unfulfilled hope, nor unfair work, nor undeserved sorrow, pain. Because I see at the end of my rough way that I was the architect of my own destiny, and if I extracted the sweetness or the bitterness of things, it was because I put the sweetness or the bitterness in them. When I planted rose bushes, I always harvested roses. Certainly winter is going to follow my youth, but you didn't tell me that May was eternal. I found without a doubt long my nights of pain, but you didn't promise me only good nights, and in exchange I had some peaceful ones. I loved, I was loved. The sun caressed my face. Life, you owe me nothing. Life, we are at peace.
Thank you, Janice. Our second reading this morning is from Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Forrest Church. When those we love die, a part of us dies with them. When those we love are sick, we too feel the pain. Yet all of this is worth it, especially the pain. Grief and death are sacraments, or they can be. A sacrament symbolizes communion, the act of bringing us together. To comfort another is to bring her our strength, the act of bringing us together. To console is to be with him in his loneliness. To commiserate is to share her pain. The act of releasing a loved one from all further obligation as they lie dying, to tell him it's all right, that she is safe, that we love them, and he can go now, is life's most perfect gift. The final expression of unconditional love we let go for dear life. We see little of the road ahead or the sky above, and the dust we raise clouds our eyes, leaving our brief interludes to contemplate the stars. All we can do every now and again is to stop for a moment and look. Look. Morning has broken and we are here, you and I, breathing the air, admiring the slant sun as it refracts through these magnificent pellucid windows and dances in motes of dust above the pews, calling us to attention, calling us homeward, dust to dust, heart to heart. Let us hear our anthem.
$525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments so dear, 525,600 minutes.
How do you measure a year?
In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee.
In inches, in miles, in laughter and strife.
In 525,600 minutes.
How do you measure a year in a life?
How about love? How about love? How about love? Measuring love. Seasons of love. Seasons of love.
525,600 minutes, 525,000 journeys to plan, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure the life of a woman or a man?
And truth is sure, or in times that he cried.
In bridges he burned on the way that she died.
It's time now to sing out, though the story never ends. Let's celebrate, remember a year in the life of friends. Remember love, love.
Oh, you got to remember the love. You know that love is a gift from above. Share love, give love, spread love. Measure love.
Seasons of love. Seasons of love.
Measure your life in love.
525,600 minutes. 533,000 COVID deaths in the United States as of this weekend. Nearly 1 per minute over this last year of pandemic. Yesterday marked the 1-year anniversary of Breonna Taylor's murder at the hands of the Louisville Police Department. It's been 3.5 months since the Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson died in a New York hospital. For some of you, it has been days, weeks, or a few months since the death of a parent, sibling, spouse, aunt, uncle, mentor, or teacher. For others, it's been longer. But the death of a child, grandparent, lover, or friend continues to find room to ache in your heart. Death is present always. It swirls and spirals, dances and lurks. Death surrounds us and sneaks up on us. It's been said by many, and I struggled to find who said it first, but it has become a common idiom to say death is the great equalizer. The intention behind this saying is that no matter who we are, no matter what we do in life, we will one day, all of us, die. It is an essential part of the cycle of life. Our carbon-based bodies are not designed to live forever. The finality of this life journey may be part of what calls us to make meaning within it, to cultivate joy, and to end unnecessary suffering. While all of this is true, we would do well to leave the popular idiom behind. Ruth Wilson Gilmore calls on us to understand that systems of oppression, specifically racism, rely on systems that create what she calls premature death. If COVID has taught us nothing else, my prayer is that it teaches us about the sacred work of ending the inequities that have made it so that Black, Indigenous, and Latinx people have been so disproportionately affected by this virus. The inequities of who and how people die are essential to reflect on, though that's not the primary focus of my sermon this morning. Quite a few years ago now, probably a decade or more, if I'm honest, I was on a nighttime bike ride with a group of friends in Boston. It was a beautiful summer night, and there were hundreds of people biking around the city together. We were taking up space, being loud. One person had a sound system attached to their bike and was playing music for probably almost the entire city to hear it. During one of our loops around Harvard Square, shouting and cheering as we went through a tunnel, my friend Massa said to a small group of us, "When I die, I want a parade. You can do whatever else you want in terms of a service, but I want a parade of my friends with signs and noise like this, a big party." I certainly do not like imagining my friend Massa's death, but I love the idea of us honoring her with a parade. She's a mom now, so I wonder what may have changed about these ideas of hers, but making ourselves have a party still feels exactly right. I wish that talking about death and dying was always as easy or filled with the joy of a summertime bike ride surrounded by friends. Instead, often planning for death and reckoning with its inevitability is not as fun as planning a parade in your own honor. Talking about death makes many, and likely most of us, feel scared, sad, uncomfortable, and ready to move on to the next topic as quickly as humanly possible. Religious community, like ours right here, is one of the few spaces where people try to talk honestly about death and the many complexities that surround it. There are just so many questions to answer. What happens when we die? Will it hurt? Will death bring me relief from life's pain? How can I possibly go on after devastating loss? Will I be free from the pain the person who died caused me once they are gone? Who will care for the sweet ones in my life when I die? The questions pile up, and even knowing where to start the conversation can get muddled. You may need one conversation, and your child may need another. I may need one conversation, and my mother may need another. Without practice, without honesty, without preparation, these conversations get more and more difficult. My hope is that our church community can be an anchor in these conversations, a place of comfort, a place to let go and feel all the feelings that need to be felt. It's not easy, and it is necessary. As Unitarian Universalists, we do not offer a single specific answer about death. We do not give one answer about the meaning of death or about what happens after we die. Our religious community offers space for each of us to find the answers that ring most true. I love the words from our chalice lighting this morning. Quite a few of you have received the full reading from me during your own times of grieving. Aaron Freeman's words offer a scientific answer, a kind of answer that is often comforting in a faith tradition that celebrates reason and science. Freeman reminds us that even after death, the atoms that make us up, the vibrations of our very existence, have not ceased to exist. We are not gone. Rather, after death, we have changed and are organized differently. As much as I love Freeman's words, science is not necessarily sufficient when holding grief after experiencing the death of a loved one. These last 6 months, I've had 3 dear, dear friends and mentors die. I take comfort in the knowledge that their energy still exists in the universe. And I need more than that. This is when, for me, I lean on the wisdom of poets. I've already heard some poetry this morning, and I hope you'll indulge me as I share 2 more poems with you. The first is from C.L. Knight, entitled Naming. If I name this grief, define it with guilt and redemption, call it drowning, desolation, call it fire and stone, then I am bound to care for it. Like a stray cat I name, that demands I feed him. He comes and goes, sometimes disappears for days and then returns, insisting that I remember. Has this ever been your experience with grief? The grief is persistent, almost suffocating, demanding you attend to it. And then it disappears for a moment or a few days. You find yourself laughing with a full belly. You do something your loved one was less inclined to do, and you find a moment of joy for yourself. You get lost in a TV show or an adorable thing your child has done, and your grief evaporates. But then, like the poet's stray cat, it returns. Not to harm you, not to shame you, but to seek your attention and care. Just like the stray cat, your grief does not need to have your attention all the time. And you are not diminishing the memory of the loved one who is gone when you experience moments of joy. Your grief, it will return. And then it becomes your responsibility again. And I would say your biggest responsibility is to be gentle with yourself. Audre Lorde offers us another poem, this one entitled Girlfriend. It's almost a year and I still can't deal with you not being at the end of the line. I read your name in memorial poems and think they must be insane, mistaken, malicious, in terrible error, just plain wrong. Not that there haven't been times before, months passing madly, sadly, we not speaking. Get off my case, will you please? Oh, just lighten up. But I can't get you out of my hair, my spirit, my special hotline phone book. Is this what it means to live forever? When will I not miss picking up the receiver after a pregnancy of silence? One of us born again with a brand new address or poem, miffed because the other doesn't jump at the sound of her beloved voice. Grief about death does not require that our lives were intertwined with those who are gone each moment. The pain of the loss can show up when you think to text the person who's just no longer on the other end. When you watch a TV show you had seen with them, the tears show up in the corner of your eyes. When their birthday comes, you remember celebrations from years past with a joy in the memory and experience heartache for the future birthday cakes that will not be eaten together. I love Audre Lorde's question. Is this what it means to live forever? When it comes to the big questions of what exactly happens when we die, we as Unitarian Universalists leave the final answers up to each individual. However, I would suggest that we do hold a collective and shared truth. Our Universalist ancestors have assured us that whatever happens after death, it is good. What that good is varies for each of us. Our theological diversity embraces a multitude of answers. For some, that might be a kind of heaven where our souls are rejoined with the souls of others. For some, it might be the knowledge that their body returns to the earth and nourishes the next generations of life. For others, it might be faith in reincarnation of the soul to continue the journey towards enlightenment. For me, it is a mix of trust that the universe will do what it will do, and curiosity about what that goodness might be. What about you? What is the good after death? Our Unitarian Universalist theology is most focused on creating heaven on earth right now. But that does not mean we ignore questions of death. Where do you find comfort? Which answers ring most true for you? I want to return to a bit more science. Now, the physicist this time, instead a surgeon and professor at Harvard Medical School. I imagine many of you are familiar with this author, Atul Gawande, best-selling author of the book Being Mortal, Medicine and What Matters in the End. The entire book is powerful, and I want to lift up just a couple of his points for you. Dr. Gawande is passionate about getting us to talk about what is most important to each of us during the end stages of life. He writes, people with serious illness have priorities besides simply prolonging their lives. Surveys find their top concerns include avoiding suffering, strengthening relationships with family and friends, being mentally aware, not being a burden on others, and achieving a sense that life is complete. He continues, we can build a healthcare system that will actually help people achieve what's most important to them at the end of their lives. I would suggest that it's not only a healthcare system that needs to be built to achieve what is most important during end stages of life, but also religious communities, friend groups, mutual aid societies, and family systems that center a holistic approach to dying, moving from fear to preparation and honesty. These are easy words to say in a sermon, but much harder realities for us to create together. The last time I preached about death, I was serving at First Unitarian on the South Side. Following the sermon, a parishioner came up to me, shook my hand, and said that while she appreciated some of what I said, She was simply feeling finished with life and ready to die. She was not worried about what came next or particularly concerned about it. Rather, she was just feeling done. I wonder, have you ever felt like this? For this person, the feelings were not exactly suicidal, just uninterested in continuing the final stages of life. One of my hopes for us as a congregation is that we engage in the constant creation of meaning making in our lives. Life gives us impossible things to survive, heartbreak to overcome, and loneliness to navigate. It also gives us unspeakable beauty, overwhelming joy, and contentment with the mundane. Part of our responsibility to one another is to be present, hold space, and sit with discomfort. Death is hard. Life is hard. May we have the courage and strength to hold what we can, lift one another up, and let go of that which keeps us from experiencing the flourishing we are all entitled to simply by being alive. Let it be so, and amen.
Please join me in singing our closing hymn, number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, then our heart is in a holy place.
I invite you to rest your hands across your heart or clasp hands with those you are sharing space with at this time. And hear these words of benediction from Judah Halevi, 11th century Jewish philosopher. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was a gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. And so, beloveds, let us love each other fiercely and tenderly. Go in peace. That is the close of our service. At this time, we will break ourselves into small groups for our virtual coffee hour.